The text came at 2:47 a.m. I know because I was awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to my wife breathe beside me. The phone buzzed on the nightstand, and I reached for it with that particular dread you develop when your adult children move away and stop calling unless they need something. You should check on her. That was it. From Jessica's friend, Amy, I think her name was. No context, no explanation, just those 5 words that made my stomach drop. I sat up. My wife stirred. "What is it?" she asked. "I don't know yet." I called Jessica, straight to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. Then I called her husband, Brandon. It rang 6 times before going to voicemail too, and I heard music in the background of his greeting. Club music, the kind that costs $50 a drink to hear live. "I'm going to LA, I said. My wife didn't argue. She just got up and started making coffee while I booked the earliest flight out of San Jose. 6 a.m. departure, 2-hour drive to the airport, which meant leaving the house at 3:30. I threw clothes into a bag without thinking, and my wife pressed a travel mug into my hand as I headed for the door. "Call me when you know something," she said. I nodded and left. The drive was empty. Highway 101 at 4 in the morning is just you and the truckers, red taillights stretching into darkness. I kept the radio off. My mind was already too loud, playing through possibilities I didn't want to consider. Jessica had always been independent. Aggressively so, actually. She'd moved to LA 3 years ago, right after marrying Brandon, and every conversation since had felt like I was interrupting something more important. The airport was quiet, that strange liminal space before the real crowds arrive. I checked my bag and went through security on autopilot, then sat at the gate watching the sky lighten through the windows. My phone buzzed. My wife. "Any news?" "Not yet," I typed back. "Be careful." I almost laughed. Careful of what? But I knew what she meant. Be careful of getting hurt. Be careful of expectations. Be careful of hoping my daughter actually needed me for something other than money, because that's what it usually was. Money. The pattern had started small, 100 here, 200 there. "Just until I get paid, Dad. Just to cover rent this month. Just because Brandon's client hasn't paid him yet. Always just. Always temporary. Always with the promise of paying me back that never quite materialized. My wife had warned me 6 months ago. "You're not helping them," she'd said over dinner, after I'd transferred another 1,000 to Jessica's account. "You're feeding them. She's my daughter. She's 32 years old." I hadn't argued. What could I say? That I liked feeling needed? That sending money was the only time she called anymore? That I was terrified if I stopped, she'd disappear completely? So I kept sending it. And she kept asking. And Brandon kept living like a trust fund kid, despite having no trust fund. The flight was packed, despite the hour. I sat between a woman who fell asleep before takeoff and a college kid who spent the entire trip watching action movies without headphones at quarter volume. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but my brain wouldn't shut up. That text. "You should check on her." Check on her where? Doing what? Was she hurt? Sick? In trouble? Why hadn't she called me herself? We landed at LAX at 8:43 a.m. I turned my phone off airplane mode and waited for messages to load. Nothing from Jessica. Nothing from Brandon. One from my wife asking if I'd landed. I texted back, "Yeah, heading to their place now." I rented a car, a silver Hyundai that smelled like air freshener and regret, and plugged their address into the GPS. 45 minutes to Marina del Rey, their fancy waterfront apartment that I knew for a fact cost more than Brandon's freelance consulting business could possibly pay for. Traffic was typical LA nightmare. Stop and go, everyone riding bumpers, horns blaring for no reason. I merged onto the 405 and immediately regretted it. A black BMW cut me off without signaling, missing my front bumper by inches. I hit the horn, hard. The BMW's driver flipped me off through his window. Something cracked in my chest. Not broke, cracked. like ice on a pond when you step too close to the edge. I felt it physically, a sharp sensation under my ribs that made me grip the steering wheel tighter. I wanted to follow that BMW. I wanted to chase it down and make that driver understand what a stupid, selfish piece of garbage he was. The violence of the thought surprised me. Instead, I let him go and merged right, taking surface streets the rest of the way. Their apartment building was one of those glass and steel towers that looks expensive because it is expensive. Doorman, valet, the whole performance. I parked on the street and walked in, and the doorman stepped into my path with practiced politeness. "Can I help you, sir?" "I'm here to see Jessica Brennan, Unit 847. "Is she expecting you?" "No." He frowned. "I'll need to call up." "Go ahead." He stepped behind his desk and picked up the phone. I watched him dial, wait, try again. After the third attempt, he hung up and gave me an apologetic smile. "No answer, I'm afraid." "Try her husband, Brandon." Same result. The doorman's smile was getting strained. "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't let you up without—" "I'm her father," I said, "and I got a message at 3 in the morning telling me to check on her. So either you let me up, or I call the police and tell them my daughter might be in danger and you refuse to let me check." That did it. He paled slightly and handed me a visitor badge. "8th floor," he said. The elevator was mirrors and soft music, the kind of elevator that makes you feel poor. I watched my reflection rise through the floors, a middle-aged man with circles under his eyes and yesterday's shirt, and wondered what I'd find when the doors opened. Unit 847 was at the end of the hall. I knocked, no answer. Knocked again, harder. Nothing. I tried the door. Locked, obviously. I was about to go back downstairs and make a bigger scene when my phone rang. Unknown number, 310 area code. "Hello? Is this David Brennan?" A woman's voice, professional but warm. "Yes. This is Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. We have your daughter, Jessica Brennan, here in the ICU. You're listed as her emergency contact." The floor tilted. "What happened?" "I can't discuss details over the phone, but you should come as soon as possible. Do you know where we're located?" I knew. Everyone in LA knows Cedars-Sinai. I was back in my rental car before the call ended, GPS already plotting the route, and the woman's voice kept echoing in my head. "ICU, emergency contact. Come as soon as possible." Traffic crawled. Every red light lasted forever. I ran 2 yellow lights that were definitely red by the time I cleared the intersection, and I didn't care. The cracked feeling in my chest was spreading, sharp edges pushing outward. The hospital was massive, a complex of buildings that looked more like a corporate campus than a place people went to die. I parked in the emergency lot and half ran to the entrance, where a security guard directed me to the ICU on the 4th floor. The elevator ride took centuries. The ICU was hushed, all beeping machines and worried faces. I found the nurses' station and gave them my name, and a tired-looking nurse with kind eyes checked her computer. "Room 447, she said. "Down the hall, last door on the right." I walked. My legs felt disconnected from my body. The ICU rooms had glass walls with curtains, most of them pulled closed for privacy. Room 447's curtain was open. Jessica lay in the bed, small and pale, hooked up to monitors and IVs. Her eyes were closed. An oxygen tube ran under her nose. The machines beeped in steady rhythm, and I stood in the doorway like an idiot, trying to remember how to breathe. A nurse materialized beside me. "Mr. Brennan?" I nodded. "She's stable," the nurse said quickly, reading my face. "Dehydrated, malnourished, but stable. We're running tests, but the doctor thinks it's exhaustion and possibly an infection. She was brought in last night around 8 p.m. Last night. 12 hours ago." "Where's her husband?" I asked. The nurse's expression flickered, something between pity and disapproval. "No one's been here except you," she said. We've tried calling the number she had listed, but no answer. I walked into the room and stood beside the bed. Jessica looked younger asleep, more like the daughter I remembered before LA and Brandon and the slow dissolution of whatever relationship we'd had. I wanted to touch her hand but didn't. It felt like something that required permission I didn't have. My phone buzzed. Text from my wife. "How is she?" I stepped into the hallway to call her. "She's in the ICU," I said when she answered. "Dehydrated, malnourished, exhaustion. They admitted her last night." "Last night? Where's Brandon?" "No idea. He's not here. No one's here except me." Silence on the line. Then, "Check her phone." "What?" "Check her phone, David. If he's not there and not answering, find out why." She hung up. My wife had a way of cutting through my paralysis with surgical precision. I went back into Jessica's room. Her phone sat on the bedside table, screen cracked, case covered in stickers that said things like, "Good vibes only" and "Namaste." I picked it up. Face ID unlocked it immediately. She was right there, face turned toward me, slack with sleep. The phone opened to her messages. I almost put it down. This was an invasion of privacy, a violation of trust, all the things I'd raised her to believe were sacred. But my wife's voice echoed in my head, and I started scrolling. The first conversation was with Brandon. Timestamp. Yesterday, 4:37 p.m. "Jessica, I need you to come home. I feel really sick." Brandon. "Can't. Meeting clients at the marina. Take some aspirin." Jessica. "Brandon, I'm serious. Something's wrong." Brandon. "You're always serious. I'll be back tonight." Jessica. "Please." No response. The next message was sent at 6:15 p.m. to Amy, the friend who'd texted me. Jessica. "Can you come get me? I need to go to the hospital." Amy. "On my way." So Amy had taken her. Amy had probably saved her life, and Brandon had been... where? I scrolled back to his messages. Found what I was looking for 2 hours later. Timestamp 6:42 p.m., right around when Jessica was probably being admitted. Brandon's message to someone named Tyler. "Dude, you have to see this yacht. 70-footer, full bar. This guy's loaded." A photo attached. Brandon in sunglasses and a linen shirt that I recognized because I'd been with Jessica when she bought it for him. $340 at some boutique in Beverly Hills. He was holding a champagne glass, grinning, surrounded by beautiful people on the deck of an absurdly large yacht. The timestamp on the photo, 7:23 p.m. My daughter was in the emergency room, and her husband was on a yacht drinking champagne. I kept scrolling, found more messages to Tyler. Brandon. "I'm telling you, this is the life. This is what we're building toward." Tyler. "Must be nice having a father-in-law with deep pockets, LOL. Brandon. "Damn right. The old man doesn't even ask questions anymore, just sends it." Tyler. "How much has he given you guys?" Brandon. "This year? Probably 80, 90 grand, maybe more. I stopped counting. I stopped reading. My hands were shaking. The phone felt like a weapon, something I could use to hurt people. $90,000 this year. I pulled out my own phone and opened my banking app. Joint savings account, the one I'd set up years ago for emergencies. The balance loaded. Half of it was gone. Not my half. All of it. The account was nearly empty. I checked the transaction history. Transfers. Dozens of them, spread over months. Small ones at first, $500 here, $1,000 there. Then bigger. $5,000, $8,000. The last one, dated 3 days ago, $12,000, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. There were other accounts too, ones I didn't remember opening. But there they were, linked to my name, with Jessica listed as joint owner. All of them had been systematically drained. The cracked feeling in my chest split wide open. I walked out of the ICU room, down the hall, past the nurse's station, and into a small waiting area with windows overlooking the city. I sat down in a plastic chair and stared at my phone. The money didn't matter. I mean, it did. That was my retirement, my security, the cushion I'd built over 30 years of careful saving. But what made me want to put my fist through the window was the casualness of it. The way Brandon talked about me like I was an ATM, the way they'd built an entire lifestyle on my back and never once considered what it cost me. My wife called. "What did you find?" she asked. I told her everything, the messages, the yacht, the accounts, the money. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "What are you going to do?" she finally asked. "I don't know." "Yes, you do," she said. "You've always known. You were just waiting for permission." She was right. Something in me had already decided. That crack in my chest wasn't breaking me apart. It was letting something out. Something I'd kept locked down for years because I was supposed to be the nice guy, the understanding father, the one who helped without asking why. I was done being that person. "I'm going to take it all back," I said. "Good," my wife said. "Do you need me to come down there?" "Not yet. I'll call you." I hung up and sat there for a while, watching the city spread out below me. Somewhere out there, Brandon was probably still on that yacht, drinking champagne I'd paid for, wearing clothes I'd bought, living a life I'd financed while my daughter lay alone in a hospital bed. I opened my banking app again and started canceling cards, joint accounts, authorized users, automatic payments. I severed every financial connection I could find, methodically, carefully, the way you'd dismantle a bomb. My phone buzzed with confirmation messages. Account closed, card canceled, authorization removed. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I called my bank's fraud department. "I need to report unauthorized use of my accounts," I told the woman who answered. "Can you describe the nature of the unauthorized use?" "My daughter has been transferring money from my accounts without my knowledge or consent. I want it stopped, and I want to explore whether there are legal remedies available." The word legal felt good in my mouth. Solid. Real. The woman took my information and promised someone would call me back within 24 hours. I thanked her and hung up, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. I stood up and walked back to Jessica's room. She was still asleep, monitors still beeping their steady rhythm. I pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down, and I waited. I waited for her to wake up. I waited for Brandon to realize his money had stopped flowing. I waited for the world I'd been propping up to finally collapse under its own weight. And while I waited, I pulled up Brandon's social media, found his Instagram, public and full of carefully curated photos of the lifestyle I'd funded. Yacht clubs, designer clothes, expensive restaurants, every post hashtagged with things like blessed and living, the dream and the hustle. I scrolled through his followers, hundreds of them, business contacts, potential clients, the kind of people who judge you by your watch and your shoes, the kind of people Brandon had been performing for, using my money as his costume. I screenshotted everything, every post, every photo, every comment where he bragged about his success. I saved it all to a folder on my phone, labeled simply evidence, because I wasn't just taking my money back. I was taking everything. My phone buzzed again, text from an unknown number. "This is Amy. Is Jessica okay?" I texted back. "She's stable. Are you the one who took her to the hospital?" "Yes. Is her husband there?" "No." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "I'm not surprised," she finally sent. She called him first. He didn't answer. "Do you know where he is?" "Probably at the marina. He practically lives there." Marina del Rey, where the yachts docked, where Brandon was probably still celebrating whatever deal or connection or illusion of success he was chasing this week. I looked at Jessica, still sleeping, still small and pale in that hospital bed. Then I stood up. "I'll be back," I told the nurse at the station. "If she wakes up, tell her I went to get her some things from home." The nurse nodded, and I left. But I wasn't going to their apartment. I was going to the marina. The drive took 30 minutes, and I spent most of it planning. What I'd say, how I'd say it. Whether I'd even bother with words or just let my presence do the talking. The anger had settled into something colder now, something that felt less like emotion and more like purpose. The marina was exactly what I expected. Rows of expensive boats, expensive cars, expensive people. I parked and walked down the main dock, looking for signs of a party. It didn't take long. The yacht was impossible to miss. 70 feet of gleaming white fiberglass, 3 decks, and music thumping from speakers I probably could have heard from space. People crowded the upper deck, all of them young and beautiful and drunk, and there in the middle of them was Brandon. He was holding court, animated and gesturing, telling some story that had everyone laughing. He still wore those sunglasses, even though the sun was mostly down now, still had that champagne glass, still looked like someone who'd never worried about money a day in his life. I walked up the gangway. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? No one stopped me. Security was light. Just one guy in a black polo shirt checking names at the entrance to the dock, and he'd waved me through when I told him I was meeting someone. The yacht's gangway was unguarded, probably because everyone here assumed if you had the audacity to walk aboard, you belonged. I belonged more than any of them knew. The main deck was crowded with people holding drinks, their conversations loud over the music. Everyone looked the same, expensive casual, the kind of calculated effortlessness that costs a fortune to achieve. I moved through them without making eye contact, heading for the stairs to the upper deck where I'd seen Brandon. "Excuse me, sir?" A woman in yacht club staff uniform appeared beside me. "Are you with someone?" "Brandon Brennan," I said. Her expression cleared. "Oh, you're a guest of Mr. Brennan's? Right this way." She led me up the stairs. Brandon hadn't seen me yet. He was mid-story, describing something with his hands, and the circle of people around him laughed on cue. I recognized the performance. I'd seen it before, at family dinners, at weddings, any time Brandon had an audience. He was magnetic when he wanted to be, charming in that practiced way that some people mistake for authenticity. "Brandon," the staff woman called, "you have a guest." He turned, smile already in place, and froze when he saw me. The smile didn't disappear immediately. That would have been too honest. Instead, it stuck there, grotesque, while his eyes did rapid calculations behind those sunglasses. "David," he said, recovery smooth. "What are you doing here?" The group around him sensed the shift in energy and fell quiet. I could feel them watching, curious, sensing drama. "Your wife is in the hospital," I said. The words dropped like stones into still water. Brandon's smile finally faltered. "What? When?" "Last night, around 8, right about when you were boarding this yacht." He pulled off his sunglasses and I saw genuine confusion in his face. Or maybe it was good acting. With Brandon, it was always hard to tell. "What happened? Is she okay?" "She's in the ICU, dehydrated, malnourished, exhausted. Amy took her to Cedars-Sinai after you didn't answer her calls." The confusion shifted to something defensive. "I didn't know. My phone died." "Your phone was working fine when you texted Tyler about how loaded the yacht owner is." His face went still. The group around us had gone completely silent now, their attention locked on our exchange like it was theater. Brandon forced a laugh. "Look, David, I appreciate you coming to tell me, but maybe we should talk about this in private." "How would you know? You weren't there." Someone in the group whispered. Brandon's jaw tightened. "I didn't know," he said again, voice harder now. "If I'd known, obviously I would have gone." "Would you?" "What kind of question is that?" "An honest one. Because I saw your messages, Brandon. I saw what you said about me, about my money." The color drained from his face. "That's private. $90,000. I said it loud enough for everyone to hear. That's how much you've taken from me this year, according to your texts. Probably more that you didn't bother mentioning to your friends." The whispers got louder. Someone's phone came out. Brandon saw it, and panic flashed across his face. "Put that away," he snapped at the person filming. Then to me, "David, let's go somewhere and talk." "I'm done talking, Brandon. I'm done with a lot of things, actually. Done sending money. Done being your retirement plan. Done funding this." I gestured at the yacht, at his clothes, at the life he'd built on my foundation. "All of it. You can't just cut us off. Watch me." His expression twisted into something ugly. "Jessica is your daughter, and you're her husband. Maybe start acting like it." Someone laughed. Someone else muttered agreement. Brandon's face went red. "You self-righteous son of a—" "Gentleman." A new voice, calm but authoritative. The yacht's owner appeared, a silver-haired man in his 60s wearing boat shoes that probably cost more than my car. "Is there a problem?" "No," Brandon said quickly. "Just a family misunderstanding. Your son-in-law here has been using my money to fund his lifestyle while lying about where it comes from," I said. "And right now his wife, my daughter, is alone in a hospital bed because he was too busy networking to answer her calls." The owner's expression went cold. He looked at Brandon, then at the growing crowd of onlookers, several of whom were now filming openly. "I think it's time for you to leave, Brandon," the owner said quietly. "Wait, Richard. Let me explain. Both of you, off my yacht, now." Security materialized from somewhere, two large men in matching polos. They didn't touch us, but made it clear the invitation wasn't optional. Brandon tried to argue, but the owner had already turned away, and the security team was moving us toward the gangway. We descended in tense silence, Brandon ahead of me, security behind. The music kept playing, the party kept going, but everyone was watching us leave, and I knew those videos would be online within the hour. We reached the dock. Security stopped at the bottom of the gangway but stayed close, making sure we actually left. Brandon whirled on me. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" "Yeah, I stopped you from using me." "Do you know who he is? What he could have done for my business? Maybe you should have thought about that before you lied to him about where your money comes from." "I didn't lie. You didn't tell the truth. That's the same thing." Brandon stepped closer, voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "You're going to regret this. You just humiliated me in front of everyone who matters in this city." "Good. Now you know how it feels." I turned and walked away. That crack in my chest had opened wider, and what was coming out felt dangerous. I made it back to my rental car before my hands started shaking. I sat in the driver's seat, engine off, and stared at the marina lights reflecting on the water. My phone buzzed with a text from my wife. "How's Jessica?" "Still sleeping. I just found Brandon." And I think I just ended his social climbing career." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Good," she finally sent. "Come home tomorrow. We need to talk about next steps." Next steps. Like this was a project. Maybe it was. Maybe that's what revenge looked like when you planned it carefully, not hot rage but cold logistics. I started the car and drove back to the hospital. Traffic was lighter now, the city settling into its evening rhythm. I found myself taking surface streets again, avoiding the highway, in no hurry to get back to Jessica's bedside, because now I had to figure out what to say to her, how much to tell her, whether to tell her at all while she was sick or wait until she was stronger, and what exactly I expected her to say when she found out I'd destroyed her husband's reputation and cut off the money supply. The hospital parking garage was nearly empty. I found a spot and sat there for a minute, gathering myself. My phone rang. Unknown number again. "Mr. Brennan, this is Detective Martinez with LAPD. I'm calling about a fraud report filed with your bank earlier today." My heart rate kicked up. That was fast. "We take financial exploitation seriously, especially when it involves family members. Would you be available to come to the station tomorrow to make a formal statement?" "Yes." "Great. I'll text you the address. And Mr. Brennan, bring any documentation you have. Bank statements, text messages, emails, anything that shows the pattern of transfers. I had all of it. Screenshots, transaction histories, Brandon's own words bragging about taking my money. I'd been collecting evidence all day without even realizing it. "I'll bring everything," I said. We hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, at the detective's text coming through with the precinct address. This was real now. Official. Not just me cutting off their money, but potentially criminal charges. Good. I got out of the car and rode the elevator up to the ICU. The same tired nurse was at the station. "She woke up about 20 minutes ago," she told me. "She's been asking for you." I walked down the hall to room 447. Jessica was propped up slightly in bed now, eyes open, looking small and scared. When she saw me, tears started streaming down her face. "Dad." I pulled the chair close and sat. Didn't take her hand, didn't lean in for a hug, just sat there, watching her cry. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry." "For what?" For everything. For making you come down here. For being sick. For... Where's Brandon?" She stopped, blinked at me through tears. "I don't know. I've been trying to call him, but he's at Marina del Rey, on someone's yacht, having drinks." Her face did something complicated. Shock, hurt, understanding, denial, all cycling through in seconds. "He didn't know I was sick," she said. "He knew. You texted him yesterday afternoon, told him you needed help. He said he was busy with clients. How do you—" "I read your messages." Her expression shifted to anger. "You went through my phone." "Yes." "You had no right. You're listed as joint owner on 3 of my bank accounts. Did you have a right to do that?" She went pale. "Dad, I can explain. Can you explain the $90,000 Brandon says you've taken from me this year? Because I'd love to hear that explanation." The machines beeped. A nurse passed in the hallway. Jessica's mouth opened and closed, searching for words. "It wasn't supposed to be that much," she finally whispered. "How much was it supposed to be?" "Brandon said we'd pay it back. He has deals coming through, investments that are about to pay off. Brandon doesn't have deals. Brandon has my money and a talent for spending it. That's not fair." "You're right. It's not fair. None of this is fair. You know what's really not fair? That I flew down here terrified something had happened to you, and instead I find out you've been systematically stealing from me while your husband parties on yachts." She was crying again, harder now. "We didn't steal. We borrowed. Without asking. Without planning to pay it back. Using accounts you set up without my knowledge. That's not borrowing, Jessica. That's theft. You're my father. And you're my daughter. Which makes it worse, not better." She pressed her hands to her face, shoulders shaking. I sat there watching her cry and felt nothing. The crack in my chest had stopped hurting. It just felt empty now. "I called the police," I said. Her head snapped up. "What?" "I filed a fraud report with my bank. The police are investigating. I'm giving a formal statement tomorrow." "You called the cops on us?" "I called the cops on whoever stole my money. If that's you and Brandon, then yes." "Dad, please, I'm done, Jessica. I'm done being your bank. I'm done being your safety net. I'm done being the person you use and ignore until you need something. I never—" "You did. You do. And the worst part is I let you because I thought if I kept helping, you'd eventually realize you needed me for something other than money." She was sobbing now, the kind of crying that makes breathing hard. A nurse appeared in the doorway, concerned, but I waved her off. "You need to rest," I told Jessica, "and I need to figure out what happens next." "Don't do this," she begged. "Please don't do this." "I'm not doing anything except stopping. That's all. I'm just not helping anymore." I stood up. Jessica reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "Dad, I'll be back tomorrow," I said. "After I talk to the police." I walked out, made it to the elevator before the guilt hit me, but I pushed it down. Guilt was what had gotten me here in the first place. Guilt for not being enough, for not giving enough, for not being the perfect father who solved every problem with money and patience. I was done with guilt, too. My phone rang as I reached the parking garage. Brandon. "What the hell did you do?" he shouted before I could even say hello. "Which part?" "The marina is blowing up. Everyone's talking about it. There are videos." "Good." "Good? Are you insane? Do you know what you've done to me?" "I stopped paying for your life, that's all. You humiliated me in front of everyone I've been trying to build relationships with for years. Maybe you should have built relationships based on truth instead of my money. You self-righteous." "I called the police, Brandon. Fraud investigation. They're looking into the accounts you and Jessica set up, the transfers, all of it." Silence. Then, "You're bluffing. I'm meeting with a detective tomorrow morning. If you want to get ahead of it, I suggest you find a lawyer." More silence. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, lower, harder, with something mean underneath. "You're going to regret this. Everyone keeps saying that. So far I don't. Jessica is your daughter, and you're her husband. Maybe start protecting her instead of using her to get to me." I hung up, blocked his number. Then I sat in my car and called my wife. "How bad is it?" she asked. "I just threatened them with fraud charges and destroyed Brandon's social network in one night. So pretty bad. How do you feel?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "Good," I said. "I feel good." She laughed, short and sharp. "Then keep going. Don't stop now." "I'm not planning to." We talked for another 20 minutes while I drove aimlessly through LA, and she told me what she'd found while I'd been at the marina. More accounts I didn't know about, more credit cards in my name, more debt that Jessica and Brandon had accumulated, using my credit as collateral. "It's worse than 90,000, my wife said. "Try closer to 200 when you factor in the credit cards and the loan they took out using your house as security." My hands tightened on the wheel. "They took a loan against our house?" "Refinanced it, actually. Forged your signature on the documents. I found the paperwork in the files you have access to online. They've been making minimum payments using money they take from you." "That's not fraud. That's felony identity theft, mortgage fraud, probably half a dozen other things." I pulled into a parking lot and stopped. Sat there staring at nothing while rage boiled up from that empty place in my chest. "Send me everything," I said. "Already did. Check your email." I opened it on my phone. There it was, all laid out in spreadsheets and scanned documents. Every transfer, every loan, every forged signature. My wife had organized it like a legal brief, evidence compiled and cross-referenced. "When did you have time to do this?" "While you were at the marina. I figured you'd need ammunition." "I love you." "I know. Now go finish this." She hung up. I sat there reading through the documents, and with each page, that empty feeling in my chest filled up with something cold and focused. They hadn't just stolen my money. They'd stolen my credit, my equity, my future security. They'd forged my name. They'd committed actual crimes, and I was going to make sure they paid for every single one. I drove back to the hotel I'd booked near the hospital, a mid-range place that was clean and quiet. I checked in, went to my room, and spent the next 3 hours on my laptop, organizing everything my wife had sent into folders for the police. By the time I finished, it was after midnight, and I had a case file that would make any prosecutor happy. My phone buzzed. Text from Amy, Jessica's friend. "Is she okay?" "Physically, yes." "Good. I was worried." "Thank you for taking her to the hospital." "Of course. She's my friend." I stared at that message for a long time. She's my friend. Simple, clear. No agenda, no strings attached. Just friendship. When had my relationship with my daughter stopped being that simple? I fell asleep around 2 a.m. and dreamed about the yacht party, except in the dream I didn't leave. I stayed and watched Brandon's world collapse in real time, and it felt like justice. The verdict hit like a physical blow, even though I'd expected it. I sat in the courtroom gallery while the judge read each count: fraud, identity theft, forgery, and watched my daughter's face crumble with each word. Her lawyer clutched her shoulder, probably already calculating appeals. The prosecutor looked satisfied. I felt empty. Sentencing was set for 3 weeks out. Jessica's bail was revoked. She was a flight risk now, a convicted felon, and I watched court officers lead her away in handcuffs. She looked back once, eyes finding mine, and the hatred there was pure and absolute. "We won," Fletcher said outside the courthouse. "Did we?" "The jury believed us. She's facing 2 to 4 years. We won." My wife took my arm. "Let's go home." The media had picked up the story by then. Local news, some national outlets. Most of the coverage painted me as either a hero standing up to financial exploitation or a monster destroying my daughter over money. No middle ground. I stopped reading the comments. Brandon still hadn't been caught. A warrant was out for his arrest, but he disappeared completely. His social media went dark, his phone disconnected. He'd ghosted the entire situation, leaving Jessica to face the consequences alone. That, more than anything, seemed to break through her defenses. 2 weeks after the verdict, I got a call from the county jail. "You have a collect call from an inmate," the automated voice said. "Will you accept the charges?" I almost hung up, but something stopped me. "Yes." Click. Then Jessica's voice, smaller than I'd ever heard it. "Dad? I'm here." Silence, breathing. Then, "He's not coming back, is he?" "No." "Did you know that he'd run?" "I suspected. Men like Brandon don't face consequences if they can avoid them." More silence. I could hear other voices in the background, jail sounds, doors clanging, intercoms crackling. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For which part?" "All of it. The money, the lies, not listening when you tried to warn me. You weren't ready to hear it. I'm ready now." Too late, I didn't say. But I thought it. "What happens at sentencing?" she asked. "Your lawyer will argue for probation. Prosecution will push for prison time. Judge decides." "Will you be there?" The question surprised me. "Do you want me there?" "I don't know. Maybe. I don't want to be alone." "You should have thought about that before." Harsh, but honest. She started crying. "I know I don't deserve your help. I know I ruined everything, but you're still my father. And you're still a convicted felon." I heard her sharp intake of breath. Either she'd hung up or the call time expired. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling that crack in my chest pulse. "Who was that?" my wife asked. "Jessica." "What did she want?" "Forgiveness, probably, or money for her appeal. Hard to tell the difference." "What did you say?" "The truth, that she made choices and now she lives with them." My wife sat beside me. "Do you feel better, now that she's been punished?" I thought about it. Really thought. "No," I admitted. "I feel like I destroyed my daughter to prove a point." "You didn't destroy her. She destroyed herself. You just stopped enabling it." "Is there a difference?" "Yes, but it probably doesn't feel like it right now." She was right. Nothing felt right. The victory was hollow, the justice unsatisfying. I'd won the case and lost my daughter, and I couldn't figure out if that was fair or just sad. Fletcher called the next day with news. "Brandon's been arrested. They found him in Arizona, using a fake ID to open new credit accounts." Of course he was. "He's being extradited back to California, should be arraigned within the week." Good. There's something else. He's claiming Jessica was the mastermind, that she manipulated him into helping her steal from you. I laughed. Couldn't help it. That's rich. He's got a lawyer spinning the story. They're saying Jessica used Brandon to get to your money, that he was just doing what his wife asked. No one's going to believe that. Doesn't matter if they believe it. Matters if it creates reasonable doubt. Brandon's trial is separate from Jessica's. He might walk. But Jessica's already been convicted. Right. Which means if Brandon gets off by blaming her, your daughter takes the full hit while he goes free. I hung up feeling sick. The system I'd trusted to deliver justice was twisting into something uglier. Brandon would sacrifice Jessica to save himself, and there was nothing I could do about it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about Jessica in jail, facing years of prison while Brandon walked away. Kept seeing that look of hatred in her eyes when they led her away. I got up around 3 a.m. and found my wife already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Research, looking into Brandon's past." "Why?" "Because if he's going to throw Jessica under the bus, someone needs to fight back. And since you're not going to do it, I am. I can't help her anymore. She made her choices. She made bad choices. Brandon made criminal ones. There's a difference." My wife turned her laptop toward me. On the screen was a police report from 5 years ago. Domestic disturbance at an address in San Diego. Brandon had been arrested for assault against a previous girlfriend. Charges dropped when she refused to testify. "Where did you find this?" "Public records, it wasn't hard. Brandon's been arrested 3 times. Twice for fraud, once for assault. He's a career criminal who found an easy mark in Jessica. She still participated. She did, and she deserves consequences, but she doesn't deserve to take the full fall while he walks away." I stared at the report, at Brandon's mugshot, younger but recognizable, the same charming smile, even under arrest. "What are you suggesting?" I asked. "That we give this to Jessica's lawyer. Let her use it to show the jury at Brandon's trial that he was the predator, not Jessica. Won't help her conviction, but might keep him from getting away clean." "Why would I do that?" "Because she's still your daughter, and because you're not the kind of person who lets the guilty party escape while the stupid party suffers. Was I that person? I didn't know anymore. Lines had blurred. I'd spent months destroying Jessica's life, and now my wife was asking me to save part of it. "Send it to Chen," I said finally, "but don't tell her it came from me." My wife smiled. "Already sent it, 20 minutes ago." Chen called me the next morning. "I got some interesting information about Brandon," she said carefully. "Do you know anything about it?" "No. Because if you're the source, we need to disclose that to the court." "I didn't send you anything." "But you're not upset that I have it?" "I don't care what you have. I care that justice is done." Silence. Then, "Jessica asked me to thank you, if you're the one who helped." "I didn't help. Someone else did." "Right. Well, tell that someone they might have just saved your daughter from taking full responsibility for Brandon's crimes." She hung up. I sat there feeling complicated things I couldn't name. Brandon's arraignment was a circus. He showed up in an expensive suit I knew he couldn't afford, all practiced contrition and wounded dignity. His lawyer argued he'd been manipulated, coerced, deceived by Jessica into participating in her scheme to defraud her own father. The prosecutor threw the assault charges in his face, showed the pattern of abuse, the history of fraud. By the end, Brandon looked less like a victim and more like what he was, a con artist caught in his own web. He posted bail anyway. Someone was still funding him, probably another mark he'd found. I made a note to warn whoever it was, but knew they wouldn't listen. People never did, until it was too late. Jessica's sentencing hearing was on a gray Tuesday morning. The courthouse was less crowded this time, most of the media having moved on to newer tragedies. I sat in the back with my wife, watching Jessica enter in an orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed, looking smaller than ever. Chen made an impassioned argument for probation, described Jessica's lack of criminal history, her cooperation with investigators, the manipulation she'd suffered. She called character witnesses who talked about what a good person Jessica used to be before Brandon. The prosecutor argued for prison time, pointed out the calculated nature of the fraud, the amount stolen, the betrayal of trust. Said Jessica needed to understand that actions have consequences. The judge listened to both sides, then looked at Jessica. "Do you have anything to say?" she asked. Jessica stood slowly, looked at the judge, then at me. "I'm sorry," she said. "To my father, to this court, to everyone I hurt. I was stupid and selfish, and I destroyed the most important relationship in my life because I couldn't admit I'd made a mistake marrying Brandon." Her voice broke. She wiped her eyes with her cuffed hands. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just want everyone to know I understand what I did was wrong, and I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it if I get the chance." The judge was unmoved. "Ms. Brennan, you didn't just make a mistake. You committed multiple felonies over an extended period. You forged documents, stole money, and violated your father's trust in the most fundamental way. The court recognizes your remorse, but remorse doesn't undo the harm." She paused. The courtroom was completely silent. "I'm sentencing you to 2 years in state prison, suspended after 6 months if you successfully complete the terms of probation. You'll also pay full restitution to your father, with a payment plan established through the court." The gavel came down. Jessica's shoulders slumped. 6 months in prison, then probation. Could have been worse, could have been better. Chen looked satisfied. The prosecutor looked annoyed but accepting, and I felt nothing at all. They led Jessica away again. This time, she didn't look back. Outside, reporters tried to get statements. Fletcher handled them while my wife and I walked to the car. "That's it," she said. "It's over." "Is it?" "The legal part is. The rest is up to you. Up to me. Whether to rebuild something with Jessica after she got out, whether to forgive her, whether to even try." I didn't have answers. That night I got another collect call from the jail. I accepted it. "Thank you," Jessica said, "for the information about Brandon. Chen told me it helped." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Dad, I mean it. I didn't send anything. If someone helped you, it wasn't me." Silence. Then, "Will you come visit me while I'm in?" "I don't know. Please. I have 6 months to sit here and think about what I did. I'd like to use some of that time to try and explain." "Explain what? You already admitted everything." "Not why, not what I was thinking, not how it got so bad without me realizing." "I'm not sure I want to know. I'm your daughter. You keep saying that like it means I owe you something. I don't. Not anymore." She started crying. I listened to her cry and felt that crack in my chest widen just a little more. "I have to go," I said. "Dad." I hung up. My wife found me sitting in the dark living room an hour later. "You okay?" she asked. "No." "Want to talk about it?" She wants me to visit her in prison to explain why she did it. "Are you going to?" "Should I?" "That's not a question I can answer." I looked at her. "What would you do?" "I'd probably visit once, to see if there's anything worth salvaging. And if there's not, then at least you'd know." I thought about it for 3 days. 3 days of replaying every conversation, every moment of betrayal, every time I'd ignored warning signs because I wanted to believe my daughter was still the person I'd raised. On the 4th day, I called the prison and scheduled a visit. The prison was exactly what you'd expect: concrete and razor wire, metal detectors, and board guards. They processed me through security, took my phone, ran me through a scanner, then led me to a visiting room with plastic chairs and tables bolted to the floor. Jessica was already there when I entered. She wore an orange jumpsuit that was too big for her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked up when I walked in, and hope flashed across her face. We sat across from each other. Neither spoke for a long moment. "I didn't think you'd come," she finally said. "Neither did I." "But you did." "I'm here, that's all. Don't read anything into it." She nodded, looked down at her hands. I don't know how to start, she said. Then don't. Just tell me why. Why I stole from you. Why you let it happen. Why you chose Brandon over me. Why you destroyed everything. She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, because it was easier. Being with Brandon, living that life, it was easier than admitting I'd made a mistake. Every time you offered to help, every time you sent money, it was proof that I was still your little girl who needed saving. And I hated that. I wanted to be someone who didn't need saving. So you stole instead. I convinced myself it was temporary, that we'd pay you back once Brandon's business took off. But his business was never going to take off because Brandon's not a businessman. He's a dreamer who thinks confidence is the same as competence. You knew that. I suspected, but by the time I was sure, I was in too deep. We'd already taken so much. How do you admit that to someone? How do you say, sorry, Dad, I've been stealing from you for years because I married badly and was too proud to ask for help? You could have just asked. Could I? Really? After everything? After all the times you warned me about Brandon and I didn't listen? She had a point. I wouldn't have just given them $200,000, but I might have helped them find another way if they'd been honest. What happens now? I asked. I do my 6 months. Get out, start over, find a job, pay you back, maybe rebuild something that looks like a life. Without Brandon. He's gone. His trial is next month, but even if he gets off, I'm done. Chen helped me file for divorce. It'll be final before I get out. Good. Is it? Good? I destroyed my marriage, my relationship with you, my entire life. What's good about any of this? You're still alive. You're facing consequences instead of running. That's more than Brandon can say. She smiled sadly. Low bar. It's the only bar that matters right now. We talked for another 20 minutes. Not about the money or the trial, just small things. How prison was, what she'd do when she got out, whether she'd leave Los Angeles. Careful conversation like strangers getting to know each other. When visiting time ended, she stood. Will you come back? She asked. I don't know. Can I write to you? If you want. I do. I know I don't deserve it, but I'd like to try. To explain, to apologize, I don't know. Be your daughter again, if that's even possible. We'll see. She nodded, started to turn away, then stopped. Dad? Thank you. For coming, for not giving up completely. I didn't respond, just watched her walk back through the door into the prison, and then I left. My wife was waiting in the parking lot. How was it? She asked. Sad, honest. Maybe the first honest conversation we've had in years. Are you going back? Maybe. We'll see. She drove us home. I stared out the window at the passing landscape and tried to figure out what I felt. Not forgiveness. That was too big, too soon. But maybe something softer. Understanding, perhaps. Or just exhaustion. That night, for the first time in months, I slept through until morning. Brandon's trial started 3 weeks later. I wasn't planning to attend, but Fletcher called and insisted. You need to see this, he said. Brandon's defense is claiming Jessica masterminded everything. If his jury believes him, it affects your restitution. How? If they find him not guilty, he has no obligation to pay you back. All the debt falls on Jessica. So I went, sat in the same courtroom where my daughter had been convicted, and watched Brandon perform innocence. He was good at it. Dressed conservatively, spoke respectfully, projected wounded dignity. His lawyer painted him as a naive husband, manipulated by a woman with daddy issues and expensive tastes. My client trusted his wife, the lawyer told the jury during opening statements. He believed she had permission to access her father's accounts. He believed the lifestyle they were living was legitimate. He was deceived just as much as Mr. Brennan was. It was a masterful lie, and judging by some of the jurors' faces, it was landing. The prosecution fought back hard, They brought in his ex-girlfriend from San Diego who testified about his pattern of financial manipulation. They showed the assault charges, the previous fraud cases. They demolished the naive husband narrative piece by piece. But Brandon's lawyer kept hammering one point. Where's the evidence Brandon knew the accounts were fraudulent? Where's the proof he forged anything? Jessica signed the documents. Jessica made the transfers. Brandon just lived the life his wife provided. It was plausible enough to create doubt. I testified again, this time as a victim in Brandon's trial. His lawyer cross-examined me aggressively, suggesting I was a controlling father angry that my daughter had married without my approval. "Isn't it true you disapproved of Mr. Brennan from the start?" he asked. I had concerns. "You tried to convince your daughter not to marry him." I expressed reservations. "You cut them off financially when they didn't follow your advice. I cut them off financially when I discovered they were stealing from me. Or when you decided to punish them for not obeying you." "Objection," the prosecutor said. "Argumentative. Sustained." But the seed was planted. I could see some jurors looking at me differently, wondering if maybe there was another side to this story. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury deliberated for 3 days, much longer than Jessica's jury had. The verdict came back split. Guilty on fraud charges, not guilty on identity theft and forgery. Brandon would do time, but less than Jessica. And his restitution would be limited to the fraud counts, which covered maybe half of what they'd taken. "This is bullshit," Fletcher said outside the courthouse. "It's legal precedent," the prosecutor corrected. "The jury found reasonable doubt on the forgery charges. We work with what we have. What we had was both of them convicted, both of them owing me money, neither of them capable of paying it back for years. Justice, technically, but it felt hollow. I went home and told my wife what happened. So Brandon gets the lighter sentence," she said, "even though he was clearly the instigator." The jury couldn't prove it beyond reasonable doubt. That's how the system works. The system is broken. Maybe, but it was the system we had, and at least both of them were facing consequences, even if the consequences weren't perfectly balanced. Jessica called that night. "I heard about Brandon's verdict," she said. "You're better informed than I expected. Chen visits sometimes, keeps me updated. She says he got off easier than I did." "He did. That's not fair. Welcome to the justice system." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm glad he was convicted, even if it's not enough. I'm glad he didn't walk away completely." "Me too. Did you help with that, somehow?" "I showed up and testified, that's all." "Thank you." We talked for a few more minutes before the call time expired. It was easier this time, less fraught. Like we were slowly remembering how to talk to each other without everything being about money or betrayal. I started visiting her once a week after that. The first few visits were awkward, conversations stilted. But gradually we found our rhythm. She told me about prison life, the routine, the other inmates, the classes she was taking. I told her about home, about work, about ordinary things. We didn't talk about the money or the trial. Those were wounds that needed time. 3 months into her sentence, she told me she'd been approved for work release. "I'll spend days at a job site and nights here," she explained. "It's a program for non-violent offenders with good behavior." "What kind of work?" "Cleaning service. It's not glamorous, but it's something. It's honest work. That's more than you had before." She flinched, but nodded. "Fair." The work release program changed her. I noticed it in her posture, her voice. She stood straighter, spoke with more confidence. She was building something real instead of living off borrowed money and borrowed time. "I like it," she admitted during one visit. "Having a paycheck I actually earned. Knowing exactly how much things cost because I'm the one paying for them. That's called being an adult. I'm 32, took me long enough. Better late than never." She got out after 6 months, exactly as sentenced. I wasn't there for her release, She'd asked me not to be, wanting to do it alone, but she called me that afternoon from a halfway house where she'd be living during probation. "I'm out," she said. "How does it feel?" "Scary. Good. Mostly scary." "What's next?" "I keep working. I pay you back. I build something that's actually mine." "Sounds like a plan." "Dad? Can I see you? When I'm allowed to leave the halfway house?" I thought about it. "Not long, just a moment." "Yeah, you can see me." She started visiting once a month after that, driving up from LA in a beat-up Honda she'd bought with her work release money. She'd sit in our kitchen and tell us about her job, her probation officer, the small steps she was taking toward rebuilding her life. She never asked for money, never suggested we forget about the restitution. Just acknowledged the debt and kept paying it off, $50 a month, all she could afford. It would take decades at that rate, but it was something. Brandon got out around the same time, sentenced to a year with credit for time served. He violated probation within 2 months and got sent back. Then violated again. Last I heard, he was working the same con on someone new, pretending to be a successful entrepreneur while living off someone else's credit. "Some people never learn," my wife observed when I told her. "Most people never learn. Jessica just got lucky." "Lucky?" "Lucky she got caught before she became Brandon, before the lies became her entire personality." My wife considered that. "Maybe. Or maybe she's stronger than you gave her credit for." Maybe she was. I was still figuring that out. The restitution payments came every month, regular as clockwork. $50, sometimes $60 if she'd had a good month. I put them in a separate account, watching the balance slowly climb. At this rate, she'd pay me back in full around the time she was 50. But that wasn't the point anymore. The point was that she was trying, that every payment was an acknowledgement of what she'd done, and a promise to do better. A year after her release, she got promoted at work. Called to tell me about it, voice excited in a way I hadn't heard in years. "They made me a supervisor," she said. "It's a small team, but it's real responsibility, and it comes with a raise." "That's great, Jess. I can increase the payments now, maybe $100 a month." "Don't sacrifice your stability to pay me back faster. The important thing is that you're building a life." "I know, but I want to pay you back. I need to." "Then do it at a pace that doesn't destroy you. I can wait." We talked for another hour. She told me about her plans, her goals, the future she was trying to build. It sounded modest compared to the life she'd had with Brandon. No yachts, no Marina del Rey, no pretense of wealth. Just a simple life, honestly earned. It sounded better. My wife and I went to LA to visit her 18 months after her release. She gave us a tour of her apartment, a studio in a neighborhood that was rough but improving, furnished with second-hand furniture and thrift store finds. "It's not much," she said apologetically. "It's yours," my wife replied. "That makes it enough." We took her to dinner, somewhere cheap she insisted on because she wanted to contribute. Watching her count out bills to pay her share, seeing her take pride in covering her portion, felt like witnessing someone learn to walk after years of being carried. On the drive home, my wife asked what I was thinking. "I'm thinking maybe we got the good ending after all," I said. "Really? After everything?" "She's alive, she's sober, she's working honestly. She understands what she did and why it was wrong. How many people in her situation can say that? Most people in her situation don't have fathers who prosecute them. Maybe they should." We drove in silence for a while. "Do you forgive her?" my wife asked. "I don't know. Some days yes, some days no. But I think I understand her now, and that might be better than forgiveness." "How so?" "Forgiveness implies I'm letting her off the hook. Understanding means I see how she got here, and I'm helping her get somewhere better. One erases the past, the other builds on it." "That's very philosophical. I've had time to think about it." Jessica started coming home for holidays after that. Thanksgiving, Christmas, the awkward family gatherings that had been suspended during the trial. She fit into them differently now, quieter, more grateful, less entitled. She got along better with my wife, too. The two of them had been tense before, my wife seeing through Brandon when I'd been blind. But now they talked like equals, comparing notes on jobs and budgets and the small victories of adult life. 2 years after her release, Jessica met someone new, a co-worker named Tom, steady and boring in the best possible way. He worked in building maintenance, had a paid-off car, and a small apartment. No pretense, no flash, just solid stability. She brought him to meet us, nervous in a way that was endearing. "He's not like Brandon," she told us before he arrived. "I know that doesn't mean much coming from me, but I learned my lesson. Tom's just normal, in a good way." Tom was exactly as advertised, pleasant, genuine, with no apparent agenda beyond being with Jessica. They split the check when we took them to dinner. He drove a 10-year-old Toyota. He talked about his job like it was just a job, not a stepping stone to empire. "I like him," my wife said after they left. "Me too." "Do you trust her judgment now?" "I trust that she learned from her mistakes. That's different than trusting her judgment, but it's something." 3 years after everything started, I got a call from Detective Martinez. "Thought you'd want to know," she said. "Brandon violated probation again. This time they're not letting him out early." "How long?" "He'll serve the full 3 years remaining on his sentence, and there are new charges pending from his latest victim." "Someone else fell for his act?" "A woman in Arizona. He convinced her to refinance her house to invest in his business. Same pattern as before." "Some people never learn," I said, echoing my wife's words from years ago. "True for criminals and victims both," Martinez replied. After we hung up, I told Jessica about it during our weekly call. "Does it feel good?" she asked, "knowing he's back in prison?" "No, it feels sad. He could have changed, could have learned. He chose not to." "I could have made the same choice." "But you didn't. That's the difference between you and Brandon. You saw consequences and adjusted. He just looks for new victims." "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not giving up on me. For making me face what I'd done, for everything. You did the work, Jess. I just stopped enabling." "That's more than most parents would do." "Maybe, but I'd been thinking about that a lot lately. How many parents enable their kids into disaster because they can't distinguish love from funding? How many Jessicas are out there, living borrowed lives, never learning until it's too late? I'd done her a favor by being harsh. Didn't feel like it at the time. Still didn't some days. But seeing who she was becoming versus who Brandon would always be, I couldn't regret it. 4 years after her release, Jessica paid off the last of her restitution. She drove up on a Saturday morning and handed me a check for $3,447.23, the exact remaining balance. I stared at it for a long moment. "That's everything," she said. "It took forever, but it's done. I don't owe you anything anymore." I folded the check and put it in my pocket. "Yes, you do." Her face fell. "What do you mean? I paid back every cent. You owe me trust, respect, honesty, the things you took that money can't replace. Dad, but you're working on those too, so we're okay." She started crying, the good kind of crying, relief and release. My wife hugged her, and I stood there watching my daughter become someone I could be proud of again. The check stayed in my pocket for a week before I deposited it. When I finally did, I moved the money to a college fund, not for Jessica, but for any grandchildren she might have someday. A way to break the cycle, to give the next generation something that wasn't borrowed or stolen, just freely given. Jessica got married to Tom 6 months later. Small ceremony, just immediate family and close friends, no expensive venue, no pretense. She wore a dress from a consignment shop and looked happier than I'd ever seen her. During the reception, she pulled me aside. "Thank you for coming," she said. "I know it wasn't a given." "You're my daughter. Where else would I be? And thank you for everything, for not letting me destroy myself completely, for being harsh when I needed harsh, for showing me what real consequences look like. I just stopped writing checks. You did more than that. You gave me a chance to become someone worth being. I hugged her then, really hugged her, for the first time in years. And in that moment, holding my daughter at her second wedding, to a man who actually deserved her, I finally felt like maybe we'd gotten through it. Not past it. I don't think you get past something like this, but through it, to the other side, where rebuilding was possible. I love you, Dad, she whispered. I love you too, Jess. And I meant it. Not the automatic love of biology, but the earned love of seeing someone fall and choosing to get back up. The hard love that comes from facing consequences and doing better. The good love, the real kind.